Hello, and welcome to Elantum Digital's Publishing by the Numbers, where we help authors and self-publishers create quality books and build successful self-publishing businesses.
All right. Hey guys, welcome to the Publishing by the Numbers podcast. It is January 15th. Somehow we got to January. I'm not sure how we did that because I just blunked and it was like Halloween. And then the holidays, they happened. Don't ask me what happened.
Survived it via coma.
They happened. And this month we are focusing in on plot. And so we thought that we would do an episode where we came in and we talked about a very specific type of plotting, which is called Save the Cat. You probably heard about it on our last podcast. You will hear about it again. In fact, it will come up over and over again because it is one of the more common methods that we use for plotting, both in novels and in movies and in lots of other things. So there's some great crossover there. And so today we have a special guest, Allie Archer, who used to be Allie Cross. I ought to ask you about that as part of the podcast because that would be fun. Who knows more about Save the Cat than I do by a significant margin. So we thought we'd bring her in and pick her brain and learn all about Save the Cat and hopefully help teach you about Save the Cat and see if it's something that can be helpful to your plotting. As always, my amazing co-host CJ is here with me today. Hi,
Hello.
CJ.
Hello.
And Virginia is off doing Virginia things, so we will have to update you on the, tennis outfit saga. Are we still talking about the tennis outfit saga?
I don't know. Now that she's in Japan for a couple of months, I think that tennis is on standby. It's just too complicated at this point. She's got to get back to Australia. So
yes, but she has stories, guys. We've already been told that there are stories about being in Japan and lots of stories. So she will be back next week to regale us with those stories, and we miss her. So hi, Virginia. All right. Let's get rolling. I want to get right into the meat of things because this is the fun part. So let's give us a little bit of background about Allie. Allie Archer is a USA Today best-selling author of young adult fantasy and science fiction, a happiness enthusiast, which I love, and a believer in hope and magic. Her stories are fantastical echoes of real life where bad things happen, but so do happy endings. She's all about the happy endings. She also loves pretty rocks, dabbling with witchy things, and Amazon packages. Me too. Woo, all the Amazon packages. If there was a box of gifties subscription based off of her Amazon wish list, she'd be the first to sign up for it. Allie is a Canadian expat who traded her view of the ocean for a view of the Utah mountains. She lives with her heroic hacker husband and one half of her adult twin sons, while the other recently flew the coop. Since she doesn't have babies anymore, she lovingly dotes on her adorable Yorkies who make her laugh every day. Allie's motto is live life without regrets, and so she does. And Allie, how long have we known each other? Years now.
Peripherally, about 20.
Yeah, it's been a while.
but more probably not. We didn't really get to know each other until we started Writer's Lunch. So like 6 or so years ago.
Just before COVID made us shut Writer's Lunch down and then start it back up again later. So this is how I know that Allie is amazing and that I've heard her talk about Save the Cat. I've heard her present about Save the Cat because she is a presenter at mostly local conferences, or have you been outside of Utah?
Little outside. I've done a couple global conferences, so just virtually, and then just on the Western Seaboard. Like I've been to Seattle and in California. So,
see, awesome. So
just a little bit here and there.
If you happen to hear that she's coming to your area, I expect you to all go sign up and go watch her because her presentations are delightful.
Thank you.
So, all right, let's get right into the questions because this is the fun part. So start in and let's hit maybe the what is Save the Cat?
So the gist of it is that Save the Cat is the brainchild of a Hollywood screenwriter named Blake Snyder. He, over the course of his career, identified 15 principal moments that happen in every blockbuster movie. So, and he coined the Save the Cat is named after that iconic moment that a lot of big movies have toward the beginning, where they kind of help the viewer know if the hero is someone they're going to like or not, whether or not they're a hero or an anti-hero at the beginning. There's this, in screenwriting lingo, they call it the Save the Cat moment. And sometimes it is as literal as that, but most often it's not. But they used it a lot, especially in older movies like the gunslinger movies and stuff, when you were having one of those gunslinger guys and he's a bad guy, but something's going to happen that's going to make him cross the line, right? But we have to see right up front that he might have something redeemable about him, or else viewers are not going to stick around to that last 20 minutes when they get to see. So that's where that comes from. Now, Blake passed away a few years ago, but he had created such a huge following that it's now like there's savethecat.com, which is where you'll always find the official things. And they almost always have a class going that's a pretty reasonable price. And even if you can only get a screenwriting class, that's still super beneficial for your novel writing. So when I started, Save the Cat was still principally used as a screenwriting, but we are starting to hear little whispers here and there of authors who are using it as a novel writing tool. And then, of course, Jessica Brody, who is part of Blake Snyder's team in California, she then her book, Save the Cat Writes a Novel, came out. And since then, it's really blown up in terms of a methodology that's useful to authors, is to book authors, I guess I should specify, and not just screenwriters.
Go ahead, CJ. I can
Okay.
see you're unmuted. You have a thought.
I had a thought. So since more authors were picking up on this idea of this is the way to organize your thoughts, since the big challenge for authors is getting the organization correct, not writing yourself into a corner, and varying problems that are similar. What made you lean towards this? How did you come to find it? And initially, did you want to find it, or did you already have your process in place?
I found it through a critique partner. I don't know how she'd heard about it, but she was using it and she shared it with us. And I am a person who's always looking for the best way to do things, which is bad. I don't recommend that point of view, because while it's really good to be a learner and a trier, you can also get super distracted by things that don't actually matter, when what you really need to be doing is writing a book, which is why it has become a bit of a soapbox for me, because there are some who would teach Save the Cat and say, this is the way that you make a best-selling story. And since Blake did his very intuitive thing, like he came to it through trial and error, through experience. But since him, others have done work on the science behind it. And even if they're not referring to it, I nerd out on psychology stuff. And I really love to learn why we do and like the things that we like. And there is good science behind what Blake sort of just intuited. But I don't think any method should be our be all and end all. And so at the time when I was introduced to Save the Cat, I was happy to have a new best way to do things. And it was most excellent until I outgrew it a little bit. And then it took me a while to learn that it was okay for me to explore, turns out that I have come back around. I do still use Save the Cat. I just use it more or less depending on how the story is flowing for me. If the story's not flowing well, then I want to just let myself off the hook and let myself draft without worrying. Although there is a happy side effect, which is that I tend to write to the beats pretty naturally now. And that was the other thing. Oh, sorry about that. I'm not used to having a microphone there, and I'm very handsy. You can take that however you would like to take that. It's probably appropriate in all ways.
We don't judge.
No,
So what was I going to say? So one of the reasons why I think Save the Cat does still rise to the top of methodologies is because it's just as effective as a revision tool as it is a plotting tool. So if you want to just let yourself go super crazy and not like, ain't nobody going to tie me down, write your story, you can still ensure that your story includes all of the necessary bits and parts to make it work well on the revision side. So I really love that it's versatile like that.
Okay, and I love that. That's a fascinating thought that I had not considered in using it to go back and say what's going on in my revision versus what's going on when I'm putting my plot together in the first place. I've done that before with other systems, but I've never thought of doing that with Save the Cat.
Well, in Blake's methodology, he identified actual specific points like word counts, page number. He has it down to a science like that, which a lot of us creative types might balk against, when we set out to write. But and even, I get a lot of pushback on this, and I'm sure every teacher of this method does, because we don't, even while we're looking for the best way to do things, writers really don't like to be told what to do. They want to know what they're supposed to do so that they know why they broke the rules, which is good. If you know why you broke a rule and it's appropriate for your story, I'm all for it. But I get most of the students that I've worked with come to me with a story that's done. Like it's really good, it's great, but it's missing something. Or they've come up to what they call the messy middle or whatever. Because I think that we have just told each other that middles are hard, that now we just believe that it should be hard, but it really doesn't need to be and shouldn't be, because a whole lot of really interesting stuff needs to happen in there. So it really shouldn't be. But because of Save the Cat's specificity on when things are supposed to happen, you can actually plot mathematically. I am not a math person, but I can read percentages, and I do like it when things get green check marks. So I like that I can run my story through this thing. It's just a spreadsheet. It's not anything fancier than that. Although it feels like magic to me, not math. But I like it when I can go, and this is what I see most often in my students, is that they've had their catalyst, their big moment, after which everything changes. And then they are in the second act of their story. And in actuality and in real life and in how to make a story really resonate with people is this debate section. People almost never, unless you're me, like I do tend to just jump into things without thinking twice, but that's not normal. And even if you do that, there's a whole lot of consequences and things that come as a result of acting too soon. So usually that is where most writers are falling short, is that debate period. It's called debate in the Blake Snyder language, but it's the preparation, it could be a sort of gathering the team. There's a lot of different interpretations for it, but the point is that we almost never have our house burned down and then the very next day building a new house, or have happily moved to a new city in which we are now starting our life over. That's not real life. So if it's not real life, it probably doesn't belong in your book. And I don't mean that like literally in terms of the house burned down or whatever, but more the emotional experience. And especially if you're writing a book about with a female main character, we like to ask our best friend that ask like 15 other people and then go back and ask our best friend the exact same question. And maybe even all of those other 15 people too. You know, we do not just, it's never one and done for us. And so I think that Save the Cat really gives us lots of looking at it in retrospect. If you've written your book, you can look back and go, wow, I gave 2 pages to this beat or section that's supposed to be 20% of my book. You know, 500 words versus 10,000 words. There's a bit of a difference. So, so that's a really great way to use it on the flip side as well.
Well, I think you've just solved some problems for pantsers. Just because, you know, a lot of folks are going to come to this podcast thinking this is probably not for me if they are those who just feel very constricted by a very, you know, strategic outline. But the thought of actually just using it as a check after you've written the story, after you've been able to be creative and you've let it all just free flow, you know, it's almost like a reverse engineer type of scenario where you're just you're plugging all of those things, all of those scenes along a specific type of timeline, you know. And for me, I love outlining, and I also love to go back and rework it that way. Especially I was just telling Jana, I was like, what would I tell myself? Because what do I tell my, you know, as a coach, what do I tell my clients when it comes to development if they're just lost? And it's usually go back to the beginning. And I was just like, you know what, I need to just go back and plug this into what my outline should be and see where the holes are. I think that's beneficial for anyone, whether you're plotting or pantsing. There are ways you can use these outlines at different stages of this process. So that's interesting. Yeah.
I agree, which is why even though I've loved it more or less, depending on the ebbs and flows, I've never just thrown it out. I do go explore, but I always end up coming back because there's a way to make it work for you. You know, however you like, whether you're needing that extra guidance on this particular story, like you need help getting to each point, the questions that lead the beats can be helpful. But at the very least, it's a wonderful tool to use on the back end to make sure that you are hitting those emotional beats.
Do you find that you use it more on the back end now? Were you like a pantser at the beginning, or has that all morphed over time?
I was a pantser who became more of a plotter, who is learning that I'm really more of a pantser. But I have the way the stories, the process comes to me is I have a leg up on a lot of people because I'm surprised at how many writers don't know the end of their story. And that's I don't know, like also as a coach, if a person doesn't know where they want the story to end, that's hard.
Yeah.
Usually with some coaxing in Save the Cat, the first beat and the last beat are mirror images of themselves, which if you just look at it like that, it can feel very formulaic. Like when Blake teaches it, it is like he uses very specific examples. And I've actually come to agree with him that the more literal you can get with that mirror image, the more poignant or deep the experience will be for the reader. It's never like a banging them over their head kind of thing, like, oh, this is exactly like this was at the start. It's not like that per se, but it is, it's kind of that. I don't know if your viewers, like somebody out there, maybe hopefully you've seen that little poster that was big in the 80s of the kitten looking at themselves in the mirror and they're a lion, right? And because, someday you're going to grow up and be this awesome lion creature, whatever that represents to you. But if I were to write that into a story, I would want to show the lion looking into a mirror at the end of the story, because then this powerful king of the jungle, whatever creature, could be looking and acknowledging that it would be a heart reason, right? Like it would be a either look how far I've come, or I've learned to be powerful while keeping softness. It could any number of things, but your reader will be the one to interpret what that is. But showing those images, it just subconsciously brings it around it gives resolution to the transformation that's happening. And that's the other part of Save the Cat that I think people aren't aware of. It rarely gets taught. Just a lot of times when we think, okay, I'm going to finally take this class on Save the Cat at some conference or whatever, and all we get are the 15 beats. And even then, it's like the instructor is just shoving them down your throat because there's a lot to teach. So what I think gets missed most often is the hero transformation part of Save the Cat. Blake called Save the Cat the transformation machine. I mean, he was coming up with all these ideas in the 80s and early 90s and stuff, right? We were pretty corny back then, so it makes perfect sense. But it's not just what is happening beat in your story. It's what is happening and how that relates to your character's journey. And because if a story doesn't bring you transformation, then it can be entertaining, but it's never going to be the book that we close and just go, that feeling, that one that makes us immediately call all our friends because please someone have read this book or seen this movie so that we can talk about it. That comes from our hero's journey, which may or may not have anything at all to do with the plot, which is like what our book's about. But it's how the beats move your character through these transformational moments that I think really set Save the Cat apart.
Well, and I think we can definitely see that in, how different kinds of movies and different kind of books work, because we talk often about static characters, like James Bond, who at the beginning of each movie, the beginning of each novel, he's the James Bond that he was before. What happened to him doesn't make any difference, and nobody cares, because we don't go into James Bond for depth of character development. We go because we want to see, all the ritzy places he goes and the cool tuxedos and the fact that his hair always stays really nice even when he gets punched in the face, and the beautiful women and things exploding, the over the top villains. And that's what we go for. But like you say, that's not a movie that you go back and you go, wow, I want to see that again. That was deep. And that's very different from movies where you do go in and you come back out and you go, what's happened there? I think I need to see that again, just to understand everything that happened, and to see that the Frodo who starts the Lord of the Rings is a very different creature than the one that ends it. And that can be the same thing in our books. I think there are books out there that might not appeal with something like Save the Cat because they're very much driven by the plot, or they're driven by the shiny, and we don't see much character change. But I don't think those are the most popular ones, not from our market research. Mostly market research says we want to see change. We like to see characters who do things. So
Yeah,
I
and
really
I
like
think a
that.
lot of times we judge, like we'll say, oh, my book is a thriller. I've got a hardened detective guy, and that's what it is. So not interested in transformation or whatever. But I would argue that you almost need it. You need some of these elements even more because really we want to read what terrible dastardly things are being done because whatever weird things make humans tick that we like those stories, but we really do want to see our hero change and grow. It's just that we don't want them to change and grow drastically, but you can still see, like you might want that hopefully by the end of the series, the detective renews his relationship with his daughter. Like it could be as small as that, but I would guarantee anybody that that their hero, even if it is extremely plot driven, there is a right and wrong way to choose the hero for that story. And Save the Cat will guide you through how to choose the right/wrong, because it's the wrong hero that you really want to make the story more interesting and to give the most room for growth. But I think that applied judiciously, you could find a use for it in any genre or story type.
Well, I'm thinking True Lies, which if you never saw it, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis, and it is kind of that James Bond idea. He's a super spy, and then she gets drawn into his world as his cute little wife and all of this, that, and the other. And it's a comedy, so it's both funny and it's got that side. But that is their arc. There is not only is it this world of all the spy stuff and the cool fancy things and the explosions, but the character arc is all about the family coming back together, her coming into his world, him inviting her in, both of them reconnecting with their daughter, who is obviously, has gone off and doing their own thing. And all of that is just as important as the bad guys they're hunting down. And yes, he comes out in the dry suit and his tuxedo is perfect, which is such a classic James Bond kind of thing. And all of those scenes that we recognize from a more static kind of setup. But the biggest thing is that character arc that goes from, we're living next to each other to being a family again.
Yeah.
And
Die Hard is another great example. Die Hard, and really I think those sorts of movies are extra genius because if you're not looking for transformation, you can just sit back and enjoy a really good shoot 'em up show. I am a Die Hard fan, and I'm all for it. I just want to see the action.
But is it a Christmas movie?
What's that?
Is it a Christmas movie? We had this argument in December, and since you brought it up, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
The first Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yes, correct
Absolutely.
answer.
Oh, good. I'm so glad I passed. That might have been the end of the show right there.
Yeah, you can stay. It's all good.
But yeah, that's what I think is our job as a writer is like Dave Farland often taught that the best way to a bestseller is to make your book appeal to as many different people as possible. And when you're learning to write and you learn how to write middle grade, Harry Potter breaks all the rules. Like we start with all the adults, but it's the adults who were first reading Harry Potter to their children and so on. And then it became very much about the kids, but the adults still had a very important role to play. However, in contemporary middle grade literature, we are very quick to get rid of adults. And whereas that's not necessary. There are ways of using them and still giving the children the freedom to, have their own story. But Dave's lesson on making your book appeal to as wide an audience, well, getting tongue-tied, is really great advice. And I think that should be our job. It shouldn't just be to write a really great spy action thriller that's going to fly off the shelves. I mean, good for you. That's super great. But why not also pick up the romance reader who might discover that they love thriller action with some romance? For one thing, I always think, what about all the couples out there? Give him a book that he can go, reading every night, and her the same story that can unite them, bring them, a different kind of pillow talk and it's all story. But if you can do that, if you can create not only super awesome smash 'em up thriller and a romance that's worth checking in for, or family relationships, something that is human that your average person can relate to, it's just going to make your book have that much more staying power.
So let's talk a little bit more about what you do as an author, because we read that you write YA fantasy and science fiction. And so what is it about all of that that appeals to you? I know you write about vampires and about dragons and about spaceships, and so why?
So excited, by the way. I love all of that. I love all of it. Tell me more.
Why not write about those things? I write those things because that's what I read as a kid, and I as a child of the 80s, and I don't mind admitting how old I am, but it's true. But also I was the baby of 5 kids. So my siblings were giving me the books, not my parents. So I didn't get children's books. The closest to children's book I got Terran Wanderer, which is by Sir Lloyd. I don't know. Thank you very much. Like, that was the first novel that I was given, and I think I was like 6 or something, because my oldest brother didn't have any concept that a 6-year-old child maybe is not reading, and because I wanted love and acceptance, I read things. And so, back in those days, there was no children's section or whatever. If you liked fantasy, you went to the big books, the fantasy books. And my mom, as a single mom, there was no spending money on a book that she knew I was going to be done in a minute. So we got the biggest books possible because they had the greatest value, which meant I was reading, all of those great juicy fantasy books from back in the day. So when I started wanting to write, that was natural, right? We just slip into what we love. It turns out I love all genres. I just hadn't really had a lot of experience with them up until then. But for me, it's never the vampire that is like, I don't set out to write a vampire story. Or it's funny, when Janice sent me this question so I could be prepared, she said, "That demon kid," referring to one of my other series. The demon kid is the only one of my stories that came on purpose. Like, I purposefully set out to try to come up with a concept, because I was on the phone listening to my neighbor complain about her daughter, who literally had to do the opposite of whatever it was her parents wanted her to do. And she was like 17, and she was a very difficult young woman. and I was listening, as writers often do. I'm so sorry to all my friends who I never really pay full attention to, because I'm like at the same time going, wow, I wonder what would happen if like you wanted her to do bad things. Like, is it just so wired into us that we must rebel against our parents? And, and so that's how come I wrote about that demon kid, whatever, is just because I wanted to explore that idea. But most of the time, characters come to me. And so then it's just a matter of finding out what presents the most interesting story for them to be in. Like Minnie is my vampire one that Jana referred to. And, she is a fairly stereotypical Korean American girl in that she's very smart and she does have expectations from her parents and stuff. But she also, like, she's as equally drawn to changing the world through science as she is through becoming a K-pop star. She would be fine with whichever one ended up working out for her, kind of thing. So then it was about her and what would present, at least to me, the most interesting story. And since I like fantasy, and I have to admit, I like vampire stories. I know they're icky. I get all of the reasons I shouldn't like them. But
there is no should, and there's
I was
judgment.
that mom while my toddler twin boys were running around like maniacs, and I was lying on the couch at 7 o'clock, having not fed and probably not changed diapers for far too long. And I am like turning Twilight pages, right? And like, just to the next chapter. And, it is what it is. So, and
I agree. Thank you.
For
validating my existence. Thank you.
Yep. So I really love stories that, like I said in my kitschy little bio that Jana read, life isn't easy. At least my life hasn't been easy. And even if your life has been easy up till this moment, chances are it won't stay easy. Like, I had my hard life at the beginning of my life, which isn't always the path for some people. But it's probably why I like writing young adult as much as I do, because I had to do a lot of my growing up and a lot of my understanding of my messed up teenage self as an adult. And I've done a lot of that through writing young adult stories. And I like stories that are hard. And because life was hard. And I get a little annoyed sometimes when things are a little too cutesy. My spirit animal is it is Penelope Cruz, right? That's her name, from Criminal Minds.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot about how to write dark without like becoming depressed all the time. And she says in one of the episodes that she surrounds herself by all of this cute stuff and everything because she knows she's going to spend a lot of time delving into the dark. But if my job came with a purpose, like at the end of my life, what would I have wanted to have accomplished? That, talking more to that hero transformation thing again, I would want to have made a difference. And I think stories make a difference by allowing children, and they can be of all ages at this point, to experience the feelings that go along with a lot of the hard things in life and discover possibly new ways of overcoming. Because, of course, the vampire story is never just a vampire story. It's a story about acceptance and found family. And, so I like the characters that are a little bit tricky and like to put them into trickier. I'm just like everybody else. I like the tropes, and they're there because they continue to be human problems.
Yep.
In all walks of life and in every generation.
Well, and you're also able to touch on those problems in a way that matters to your readers, and that in a way that's relatable to those readers, which is, what resonates and what keeps them coming back. So yeah, why wouldn't you address any of those things? You would, and you do.
Yeah.
And it's especially important in young adult books, because a lot of that is hitting young adults for the first time. It could be same old for us adults, but I remember some of those hurdles and some of those problems, those very tropes, experiencing them for the first time, your first love, your first breakup, the first everything that you experience. And it's those books that you read that really help you find a place where you feel understood, So at least that's what it was for me. So I agree.
Yeah.
That's how you help people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you're helping authors too. Do you want to talk about that? Just like, because you still do presentations for Save the Cat,
yeah.
right?
So I love to teach. I'm a lot like Jana that way, that there's really, and actually, CJ, I didn't quite catch this in the first couple of your guys' shows, your intros and stuff like that you were an author coach too. But there's nothing better than, well, maybe the only thing that could be better is huge success of your own, which I have not yet truly experienced. I can't say, but man, it feels good to have helped someone find their joy. Like, this life is hard, but it's still possible to be happy. And I think one of the main ways we find happiness is by finding the thing we love to do and by doing it well. And if I can help someone discover that, like, it's a little like being God, like we are gods of our world that we create, and we can also be godlike by helping another person. I've had writers come to me who have won first chapter contests. In our community here, there are a couple first chapter contests that a lot of people get really engaged in. But then they can't sell a book, but they don't understand because their first chapter is amazing. And so said so, like all these people said so. But that frustration of winning and knowing that they're getting off to the right, on the right. No, my gosh, I'm mixing all these metaphors in my head. Getting started right, but they're not finishing right, and it's causing them to not get book deals or offers or whatever, and they can be close to giving up. And how awesome is it to be, especially with Save the Cat? I can't really take any credit because it's really just like going back, like you said, reverse engineering, going, oh, it's really probably just because, once you're behind on this thing, you don't give enough time to this one thing, you're behind on everything else that comes after that. And then they're just like, and then they email me to tell me they got a book deal. I have, yeah. So I don't mind living vicariously through other people. I'm a reader. I've been living vicariously my whole life. So yeah, it's great feeling, right? I have just barely decided that the only marketing technique I have not actually tried to sell more books is to write more books. So
wait, that works.
I know.
Jana's only been telling me this for like the last year, because I hired Jana about a year and a half ago, I think now, because my books and I check all the boxes, but we just haven't been successful. Not since the glory days of publishing back in 2011. Like that
Right.
was easy to it wasn't easy. It didn't feel easy, but it was, so I've just decided to not work so hard at trying to coach and teach other people. That's not to say you can't email me or whatever. I am a sucker for a chance to help somebody. Sorry. I just am, but I'm not trying. The trying was really exhausting me. And what I think I need to be trying is the writing more books thing.
Yeah.
So, so I do, my favorite thing to help authors with is story development, because I've got the tools, but also I think it's where my own particular gift lies. Jana's really, really great at like looking at, like, I know this is what she did for me. You know, she looked at my library, my whatever, bibliography, whatever you want to call it.
Backlist.
And a backlist.
Backlist.
I always feel like it's not my backlist if I'm still laboring over it, which is one of my shortcomings also, is that I'm forever looking back and trying to fix things instead of moving forward, which, you know, it's okay. We are all learning and growing, and even old dogs can learn new tricks. So, like, she's really good at seeing the bigger picture and the long-term goals of a person's career, which is not something I'm very good at. But I am really good at helping people find what's missing in their story and how to fill it. It feels like magic, which is maybe another reason why I love doing it, because it'll be a 60-minute conversation with a person in which magic just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm religious, so I do tend to feel like, you know, we're given gifts in this life, and so you can use them. And that feels like a way I can use them. And it just takes 60 minutes. And I don't need to coach them after that or anything. And it feels good. So
Well, and
So
you're
if
helping
they
them
want
put
to
all
reach
of these.
out, oh,
Go ahead,
Vicky.
Jana. Sorry.
No, you first.
I was just gonna say, it feels like putting those puzzle pieces together, where you're showing them the holes and what, and the fact that you can not only help them identify what's missing, but how to fix it. That is an added benefit to what your gift is and what you can do, because there are a lot of developmental editors that will point out the problems, but they don't know how to fix it, you know, they can't even give suggestions, which is a bummer, because then that individual is left with, okay, problem identified, and then there's panic and wailing and weeping. So.
And I've experienced that. I've had someone who was an international bestseller, everybody would know his name, read my book and tell me exactly that. And I've been left going, so where does the big bucks come in? Because, you know, but Jana's really good at that as well. She edited one of my books. She edited for me for the first time recently. And I had that experience with hers. And I think it's really special when you can find someone like that. And it's just that it's a little bit harder to advertise, like, oh, hey, come to me. This is my magical gift. I do think it is my gift, but I can't really say it like that. So, you know, I love talking to people's stories. I just ask that they send me a beat sheet, like fill out a beat sheet and send it to me. Give me some, you know, a day or whatever, schedule, whatever, to noodle over it. And chances are we'll have a productive phone call.
But we should probably start wrapping things up, which means that we have come to one of my very favorite parts of the show. Everybody knows this is one of my very favorite parts of the show. This is our moment of absolute and utter irrelevancy, where we will talk about things that have nothing to do with anything else, because we can.
Okay.
And Kate, since you haven't talked as much, you can kick us off with what is completely and utterly irrelevant for you today.
Okay, so the saga with the pug continues. I have discussed not Riley. I did have a Riley. I have discussed Spike in great detail, I think, or maybe it's just me complaining a lot in my head. But Spike enjoys the little pet door that we have, because it's very easy for him to see that he's in trouble and then grab what he's in trouble for, usually whatever it is he shouldn't,
Sorry.
and then escape, you know? Escaping is involved, and then I'm running out to the back to try to prevent him from eating whatever will kill him. And so and Jana knows about this, but recently he swallowed a piece of a fork, even though I was like, Spike, you will do that. Yes. Yeah. Busted fork. It was pointy fork. And I was like, please, nope. And then he chewed it, waited as I was coming, headed for the thing. And by the time I got out to the backyard, he had swallowed it. And I was like, this dog is going to die. as I have predicted from day one, when he was eating all sorts of things. So I talked to our friendly neighborhood vet, which is actually one of our good friends, Corey, who is an editor and a writer as well. And she gave me very pointed instructions on exactly how much hydrogen peroxide to give this poor dog so that he would upchuck the fork and not accidentally perforate his intestines and live, or, not cost me tons of money to try and have surgery to get that out. So he did, in fact, throw up. Isn't this delightful? Hope you weren't eating.
Not yet.
Not yet. A piece of fork and a penny and a Tootsie Roll wrapper, piece of a Tootsie Roll wrap. He might have swallowed the whole thing and we only got half. I'm not sure. But I just thought to myself, you will need monitoring always. Just, he lives to see another day. Just wanted you all to know that Spike lives, but he is now babysat or put in his kennel whenever we cannot watch him. 24/7. Ah, that's all.
How old is he?
He is about 8 months old.
Okay. We have Yorkies, and one of our Yorkies ate an entire bag, like an 8-ounce or so bag of Dove, individually wrapped Dove chocolates, dark Dove chocolates. And we all are hear like how dangerous chocolate is for dogs, right? And when we discovered this, we're like madly running around the house trying to find him. And he was totally fine. He ate the entire package. He did, over the course of the next week, poop out foils. But he was in no way bothered. He didn't even have indigestion. And he was like a 10-pound guy. So, and that guy passed away in January of this year. So we have a new young guy who I joke, there's a reason he's beautiful, because he is very dumb. He just looks at us and he is so cute. He's very pretty dog, long flowing white hair, and he's just beautiful. But he is very special. He will stand outside of our pet door looking at us. And he has been taught how to come in and out. He can come in and out if he wishes it, but he will also stand out there freezing, shivering, and not come in. He still doesn't know how to sit, and he is 13 months old. He will sit. He just looks at you like, I have no idea what you're saying to me, but I am listening. And he's just dumb. He is truly dumb. I said that all as he was growing up, and my family's like, Mom, you can't say that. It's so rude. And now they're like, I think you might be right. He's very dumb. Very cute, but very dumb.
Oh, good gravy.
And he likes to eat anything and everything also. And
what you're telling me is that Spike and your sweet dog need to have a play date where one of us gets a break and the other watches.
Well, at least Spike has he's thinking, he's running out the door because he knows you're going to take the thing. That shows a measure of intelligence. Whereas Percy is just, I have no idea why you are looking at me while I'm sitting here in front of my poop. Like, what? What's wrong? I'll smell it. It's poop. Isn't that good? I used to compliment him for pooping, but he just doesn't seem to grasp that, the finer points of pooping.
Right.
That it should happen when and where I decided.
Your turn, Jana. What's your irrelevant moment?
Oh, well, let's see. Since we're talking about dogs, my neurotic dog loves my grandson and hates my son.
Oh.
So they came over to visit today, and she sees my son, and she puts up, she's a poodle sheepdog cross. And so she thinks that she should herd all of her sheep, and all of the children are sheep. But, my son apparently must be a wolf, because she does this big baying howl and everything else. And I'm running through the house trying to get her to shut up. And she won't be broken of this. I have been able to break her of a lot of things, but she will not stop baying at my son. And yet she loves my grandson. And as soon as we get him low enough, she must lick the back of his head. same spot in the back of his head, and then it makes his hair stick up, which is really, really funny at this age. So yes, she's very smart, but when it comes to this, I don't know. So folks, if you have any suggestions for our 3 tremendously strange little animals, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'm sure that we'll at least chat about them. I don't know if it'll fix our problems, but it's funny. So, well, thank you so much for coming, Allie. We've had a wonderful time, and hopefully we can have you back again. We'll have to think what other things we can, pry out of your brain and share with our
Always
listening
dive
audience.
deeper into that hero transformation or those beats, because we didn't even really talk about what the actual beats
We do.
are.
So I think we need to do
a
that.
beat
So
Yeah.
and we could do, transformation comes in with character development. So yeah,
Yeah.
I am certain that we will have Allie back, and we will tease out some more of what's going on here. But like I said, when my beeper went off that said that my dinner was done, we had to stop podcasting, and my beeper just beeped. So
okay. Well, that was
That
perfect
said,
timing then. Thank you so
absolutely.
much for having me. You guys are awesome, and it's a real honor to be included in your show. Thank you.
Thanks,
Well, we're
Allie.
so glad that you're here.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. You can find the show and the show notes at www.elantumdigital.com and follow the podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast distributor. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a review. We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.